of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. So if my lecture gives anything positive to you, then it's only because of the organizers, and thanks will be given to the organizers. And if during my lecture, if you do not like anything, then it's completely in my part, and blame should come to me only, not to the organizers. I must first, before starting the lecture, I must thank Dr. Singh, Principal, Sapurgram College, and Professor Asim Babu for their illuminating initiatives, which helps me to introduce the subject in an easy way. It's true that it was philosophical. The document, New Education Policy, what our government is trying to implement in our country, is a bit philosophical. It's a model. It's not actually just a guideline. So everybody can take their own way. So I am thinking in some different way, since the seminar is organized by Department of Philosophy, Education and Mathematics. So although a mathematician, I point out from philosophical point of view of education, how the term education is used by several people for last 2000 years to develop the society. So how the definitions of education came into picture, and how the new education policy reflect that philosophy. So in starting point, I may start with this feeling that education in prehistoric days. Prehistoric means ancient days, where human civilizations are almost like animal civilizations. The civilization have not yet been started. All people are running and trying to get food by hunting. Even in those days, people want to know the full moon, they want to know the new moon. They have to understand how to count. So they developed two things, how to count and the use of fire. So by counting and using of fire, they developed the new civilization. And the area where human civilization is different than those of the animal civilization is that human people educate their sons, their students. So by educating the next generation, human civilization become different from those animals. So through education, the human people gathered knowledge, and this knowledge changes the society. Since knowledge has become vast one, so knowledge needs specialization. So education is also used in different specialized areas. As specialization came into picture, government needs specialized people. So education is tagged with those specialized training. So for last 2000 years, if I consider, this is the way by which education is changed, and ultimately we got a new education policy 2020. So I may start with some preliminary definitions. Let us see how people used to think about education 2000 years back, like pre-Christ era. Okay. I may start with definition of two famous persons, Plato and Aristotle, two famous Greek philosophers. Plato told, education is the capacity to feel pleasure and pain at the right moment. Just see the definition. Society is completely absent. Plato thought in that time, a person become educated to feel his pleasure and pain, to understand himself, to understand his position in the society. Aristotle told, education is the creation of sound mind in a sound body. Again, you see They are talking about mind and body, not talking about any training. So Plato and Aristotle both consider education is a personal development, which reflects the ideology of education in then Greece. Recently, our famous teacher Gandhi told, by education I mean an all-round development of the child in body, mind and spirit. All-round development. So time has changed. Time has changed. Now in time of Gandhi, it is no more considered, education is no more considered as a personal matter. It is not just a mind and body, it's just all-round development of a child in body, mind and spirit also. Look at the term spirit. The spiritual part actually came from Indian concept. So whatever the definition people give, whatever the way people trying to develop the means of education, always the philosophy of the civilization, where from the person born and brought up, actually take part in the definition of education. Next, I want to give three definitions from three different persons of the world. One, Vivekananda from India, Karl Marx from Europe, and Mandela from Africa. Vivekananda told, education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. It is Eastern philosophy that actually you cannot educate a person. Education is there inside. Srinantu Vishye Amritasya Putra Aje Damani Dabbani Tasthu. Everybody is educated. Education is there inside him. You have to ignite the fire. And the duty of a teacher is ignition. Then a person becomes naturally educated. Exactly opposite definition given by Karl Marx. Consciousness, and consciousness brings complete revolution. So here, according to Karl Marx, education is a social phenomenon. So if a person is educated, if a group of people are educated, they become conscious about their right. And when they become conscious about their right, they create new society through revolution. In Vivekananda's definition, education is completely an inner thing, whereas in Karl Marx's definition, education completely comes from outside. So both of these definitions cannot be right at the same time. I don't want to contradict anybody, but what I want to mean that the term education is used both by Vivekananda and Karl Marx to support their ideology. It is the Eastern ideology of Vivekananda which forced him to write this definition. Education is the manifestation of perfection that is already in man, and also the Karl Marx view forced him to write the definition that it is to create a revolution. Whereas Nelson Mandela gave the definition, education is the, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So actually, Mandela understands that by education, you can change the world. And as through education, you can change the world. So naturally, everybody trying to mold the education system, education pattern, every king, every government, every people, they will get interested in education so that if they can educate people according to their wish, then they can change the world easily. Changing a world easily, it's nothing but changing the pattern of education. So that's why whenever new education policy comes, people started thinking, okay, now what to do, what not to do, whether I'm in trouble, whether I'm in a good position, what will be my fate in the new education policy, because really education matters. I want to concentrate myself in Gandhi and Rabindranath, two greatest thinkers of India in last 200 years. So if anybody goes through Gandhian philosophy on education, he talked always about nationalism and education. How education make a great nation. Whether Rabindranath always considered an internationalism in education. He started the university named Visva Bharati. Visva means the world. Visva means the world. And Bharati, actually, the goddess of education. So he wanted that the education should be generalized. One should get education from the whole world, and it should be an amalgamation of Eastern and Western culture. So that's why Rabindranath started his school such a way that the university starts for pre-nursery stage named as Patha Bhavan. Patha means only study. And he wrote is Sahaja Path. It was a fantastic book for the kids. Nowhere in the world a Nobel laureate, Nobel awardee in literature write a book for pre-nursery stage. It's a fantastic experience that education and feeling should start from primarily. Then he categorically differentiate what is Shiksha and what is Vidya. Shiksha means just learning, and Vidya means something more. And then Vinaya Bhavan, these are Shiksha Bhavana, Vidya Bhavana. In that time, Shiksha Bhavana means the graduate college, Vidya Bhavana means the postgraduate college, and Vinaya Bhavana means the B.Ed college. Vidya Dadati Vinaya. If you have Vinaya, then you are allowed to share your Shiksha and Vidya. Gurudev Rabindranath also started two different areas in two different campuses for Vishwabharati University. One is called Shanti Niketan, another is called Sri Niketan. Shanti Niketan is for theoretical study and Sri Niketan for the applications. So even at that time, Rabindranath and Gandhiji, although they are different in thinking, but they are trying to capture the Eastern and Western philosophy of education into the policy. That time, our government, we are not independent. So great thinkers are thought about the development of education policy. If we consider the earliest education policy, then we may think the education nationalism education policy of Gandhi and the education policy of Rabindranath are the basic, the initiation education policy of India or of modern India. Earlier education was there in Vedic time, Brahmacharya, Vanprastha and Sannyas, in the time of Gautam Buddha, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, all these are education policies. But in modern India, the education policy given by Gandhi and given by Rabindranath, in my feeling, these are the first education policy given to India. But actually, what values we want from education? So C.S. Lewis, he is a famous educationalist, taught both in Oxford and Cambridge in early 20th century. And he is famous for his views in education. He wrote, "Education without values, as useful as it is, seems that to make man a more clever devil." So this point was categorically pointed out by our previous speaker, that even the educated people are becoming selfish nowadays. Instead of developing love in their head, they are becoming clever in their head. Becoming education, if educate make people selfish rather than a hearty person, then we have to think seriously about the education, what is going on. If we teach from our childhood the competition of education, naturally a competitive guy will come who will not bother about the society except his personal gain. If always we promote the first or second of the board by giving their pictures in the television always, then we are going to ruin our society very soon. Because if we highlight only the first or second, those who stood first or those who stood second in any competitive exam, then all students will become first and second, and they will become. We should remember that for development of a society, excellence is important, but more important is the friendship. Human civilization developed because few people are excellent, but it also developed because other people are friendly to him or friendly to them. I once again Mandela for the values in education. A good head and good heart are always a formidable combination, but when you add to that a literate tongue or pen, then you have something very special. So we should be very good in heart, we should be very strong in brain, but at the same time, we should be literate enough. We should know how to speak, how to share our feeling, and how to write. This is the role of the education that make an intelligent person, a properly trained person who can develop education, who can develop the society. So ultimately, for development of society, always government, either the kings or the political governments, whichever is formed, they needed trained people. They don't need much academicians. They need trained people who can run the society. So because of this logic, some changes are coming. The changes are initiated by US people, that is United States. Later on, it came to Europe and Asia. In India, initially, IITs captured the idea. Then, after that, the idea is run through central universities, state universities, colleges, and schools. Like annual pattern to semester pattern. Annual pattern means somebody will got more time to acquire his knowledge. He will get more feeling. He should have more feeling about his mind. The things should be trained easily. So annual pattern to semester pattern, while it is coming, it clearly indicates that instead of making a student more knowledgeable, we are giving emphasis on fast training. How fast we can train a student so that he can immediately help the society to develop. Later on, syllabus. Syllabus is always changing, and always syllabus is making in such a way that it can support immediately. Like our previous speaker pointed out, that as the changes of the civilization, initially it was human toil, later on it came as mechanical world, then electrical world, then electronics world, then computer science world, then information science world. And if you see, the best people ran for the forefront job. In 17th century, best people used to go for botany, and now the best people generally moves in our country, like India, for computer science, whereas US and some other places, it's for law. Like, it's not education, it's the training process which is given emphasis so that immediately the society can get benefit. There is a drawback of this training. Training, actually, it's a short-term gain. In training, if you train your mechanical and mining engineers, they can get hold the coal and oil from for digging the earth, and they can, at the same time, these people can make your energy end and also destroy your environment by putting CO2, SO2 and other gases. So training can create real big problem instead of proper education, proper value. And what is happening nowadays in the world? And accordingly, privatization comes. Since we live in a capitalist society, capitalist people, they want to fund in training. Since training exceeds the education, so putting money in training can give you a good benefit. So accordingly, private institutes, private universities are coming where the money is funded by big people. So putting this thing in mind, just I want to point out what are there in new education policy. So new education policy 2002 to 2020 changes the structure. The existing 10+2 structure in school education will be modified with a new pedagogical and curricular structures of 5+3+3+4. 10+2, I mean, starting from 6 years age. 5+3+3+4, covering ages 3 to 18. This means the first 5 years of school will comprise of the foundation stage, then next 3, so on, so on. So actually, if you divide in this way, then you have to change your school pattern also in this way. And changing school pattern in this way means you need school space and school teacher. Or you have to arrange some other, the original schools should be arranged in such a way that even on those schools where 10+2 pattern is running, you can run this 4 pattern, this 4-tier system. So it's both challenging for the government and the school also, how this can be implemented, because how it will be implemented, but have not yet been officiated. Now, new education policy on language. They give emphasis on language. They told some term like home language, mother tongue, regional language to be the medium of instruction up to class 5. It's a wise decision. One Rabindranath told that in primary education, mother tongue is like breast milk. So as the breast milk is an essential parameter for a kid for first 6 months, nothing can substitute the mother's milk for a baby. Similarly, initial education, other than mother tongue, cannot be support a student education properly. Because the language by which a student, a boy or a kid, always mix with the society, education should be taught in that language also. Otherwise, he will not associate with education from his heart. He will think education is something else. It's not his inner concept. It's the concept which comes from outside. Only the language by which he talks at home, he talks with his mother, he talks with his friends, should be the language of education. Next, the school curriculum to be reduced to core concept. Core concept is the important term here. that nowadays what we are teaching, most of the things are obsolete. But new things are also coming in our knowledge. Every year, some development of the subject is going on, and new subjects are incorporating in the syllabus. If we are trying to always incorporate new things in the syllabus and ask our students to understand this, then they will not understand anything. They will only grasp and memorize and write those things on their answer paper. And naturally, the society will become not full of human beings, but full of robots who can mug up and write on their answer paper and cannot understand anything. So, naturally, it's our duty that in the syllabus, we should keep only the core concept, only the definitions, and we should ask our student to think. Instead of forcing our student by our own thinking, we can ask the student to think about the definition, about the core concept, and we should ask them to say something. Number 2, vocational education. It starts from class 6. Vocational means where a student be acquainted first with the society. Like a student should know what is happening in the society. Suppose I simply tell whitewashing fence, whitewashing the wall. A student can understand all mathematics. If a 7th or 8th standard student is given a task to just whitewash the house, and to whitewash a house, what is your plan? So they have to do the measurement, they have to calculate, and they have to, by making the plan, they should understand the real benefit of the education. I can share my one of the story what is written by famous Nobel laureate Mr. Feynman. Once Feynman, when he was in class 9, he went to his school and he has seen that one task is given by his teacher, that some thread is there and you have to cover the wheels. But see, surprise that nobody can do it. Why? Because they don't know how even to use the simple formula twice pi r. The circumference equal to 2 pi into radius. Even the simplest formula they forgot, they could not use. So one thing is knowledge, next thing is using the knowledge. So if vocational education starts from class 6, naturally the students will understand how to use their knowledge. Next, I want to point out multilingualism for the understanding of Indian culture. Since we live in India, so unity in diversity, the phenomena by which we can understand our neighbor is just knowing his mother tongue. If a person just listen Bengali, the language Bengali, Assamia and Uriya, he understands that 70% of the words are almost same. Even in a particular language, there are sub-branches. So, if you want to understand the culture of India, what is Northern Indian language, what is Southern Indian language, what are ancient Indian language, and how those mix and amalgamated, they have a real feeling of the Indian nation. So, in schools and colleges, there should be option that even a student learning one language should take at least one diploma or 1 or 2 coursework on a neighboring language. Like in master in Assamia, he can do one course in Bengali literature, one course in Assamese literature, so that they understand that, okay, these language are not different from the language what I am studying, and it should be vice versa. Next, I want to emphasize on equality. Actually, in our country, we have more than 850 universities and 40,000 higher education institutes. So since we are planning that, okay, everybody should come through interview and merit list, so it's impossible for a student to appear all the examinations. So naturally, the government is thinking for a single regulator. Suppose a student want to be a medical graduate, he have to appear once. Somebody want to become a law graduate, he has to appear the entrance exam for once. Only by that way, we can show the equality. But naturally, there should be some reservation for geographical reservation or social reservation, for state or for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, other backward caste also. But a common exam is needed, and without the common exam, without the common norms, you cannot make the equality among the Indians. So now I want to make some comparison between the National Education Policy 1986 and National Education Policy 2020. So earlier it was thought, for 1986, I gave on simple writing, and for 2020, I make it italics. So the role of education is the all-round development of student. This was the initial idea of the education policy in 1986. But now it is changed a little bit. It is termed as objective is to provide multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary liberal education. So is there any difference? Somebody may feel, no, there is no difference. Both of these terms are same, but there are differences. Here actually, although the term liberal is used for education, but basic is multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. This term is added. That is, it's not important that a all-round development is done or not, but it's important whether the students study in this particular manner or not. So, schools and colleges and higher education institute should emphasize education in such a way that a student should understand something in the way of multidisciplinary and some in the way of interdisciplinary by getting the liberal education. Although it is liberal, but two adjectives are added in front of the term liberal. Next, the structure. What I discussed, the structure is changed little bit, and naturally the implementation of this structure depend upon the financial support and the feasibility, the way by which it will be implemented, whether in the same school or different school will be set accordingly, that yet not to be clear. Instead of 6th year as class 1 in new education policy, it is recommended that 3rd year of the child. I think this point may be raised by the government, because nowadays several mothers are working. So for working mothers, so generally working mother needs their kid to be placed in the play school or school at the age of 3. And this phenomena already started for like 20 years now. And most of the, not villages, but most of the small towns, even you see that a 3-year boy or girl, a child, generally goes to schools, play schools or something. Just government in this policy, it has become regularized, nothing new. Already it is started in our country, it is regularized now. Even it is regular, and government is planning to regularize for everywhere, like in primitive villages also. So the question is how it will be implemented, who will teach, what will be the capacity, or what will be the capacity of a child, capacity of a person who can handle a third-year child. Should she have a, or he have a replica of his, replacement of his mother, have some knowledge about health other than education? These are not yet clear. 4, 2-year HS level and 2-year pre-university level are separately considered, and both had board exam, but now a secondary education stage is designed by clubbing 2 years higher secondary level and 2-year pre-university level. Exams are suggested at the school level except for board exam in 10th and 12th. This is 10th and 12th are clubbed. I think it's a very good idea. This is a prime time. The students are wasting 6 months, like test exam of 10th to starting exam of 11th. I think this 4 years should be clubbed is a nice idea. Unnecessarily disturbing a student at the age of 16 or 15 at the teenage is not a good idea, because in teenagers students are becoming bubble and fluctuate thinkers. So it's better that is the prime teenagers students are clubbed in a 4-year club. Okay, another student faculty ratio. 4. So all undergraduate programs are shifted from 3 to 4 years. Now the undergraduate programs are different. 3 years for normal graduation, 4 years for engineering, and 4.5 to 5 years for medical. Now government is filling same type of undergraduate, 4 years undergraduate. And then actually what it will makes our system more comparable with that of the Asia and Europe and US. And another important thing, what is going to be implemented, that out of that 4 year, suppose a student complete 1 year only. In present system, he does not get anything. A student complete 1 year or 2 year, they're equivalent to the student who have not yet enrolled as a student. But this situation will be changed very soon, I think. That okay, a student have done some courses, you will get accordingly a certificate. Suppose a student enrolled in graduate, completed some credit, he will get a diploma. Some more credit, he will get an advanced diploma. Some more credit, he will get pass degree, and ultimately he will get a final degree. So naturally, this is a better idea than what we are doing now. So as 1 year is extended to the college or graduate, so 1 year is reduced from the post-graduation. Because in post-graduation, what we are doing, we are teaching a common topic. But post-graduate, it's not possible to teach everything in postgraduate. So postgraduate education is of 1 or 2 years with more specialization and research focus. That is those who will go for postgraduate. It is expected that either they will move for research or some specialized job. So instead of teaching some common feature, let the postgraduate student teach something specialized or some research topic. And also teaching learning process should develop in such a way that rather than classroom teaching, field work and research project, Nowadays also field work and research projects is also included, but probably in the new education policy, more emphasis will be given to this. Now, student-teacher ratio. It's a really alarming. In higher education, government proposes the student-teacher ratio 20:1 to 30:1. Because really, in higher education, we need more teachers to give them proper education. If I remember properly, if I made mistake, you just correct me. Our earliest university, not in India, but also world, is Nalanda University. In Nalanda University, the student capacity was 10,000, but the teacher was 1,400. That was the standard maintained even today by several international universities, that the student-teacher ratio should be not more than 1:7. Nowadays, even in higher education, we have 1:20, but in new plan, it is 1:30. I am telling you, two famous institutes in India, where the teacher-student ratio is maintained less than 1:7. One is Indian Institute of Science, IISc Bangalore, and another is ISI, Calcutta. And you know that both of these two institutes are really reputed throughout the world. So really, teacher-student ratio in higher education is really an important factor. But as government have to think about the fund also, and in our country, the quantity of education always given priority to the quality of education. So probably government is thinking 30:1 to provide education for everybody. But naturally, reducing the student-teacher ratio is an alarming for the next generation. Next, getting a job at a college or university. Nowadays, a NET or SLATE exam conducted throughout the country is an essential criteria. But other than NET SLATE, a PhD degree is supposed to be an compulsory, yet not implemented by new education policy. Some special emphasis are given on PhD. Even before starting the education policy, those who know how is while getting marks for interview of a student to become a assistant professor, then a huge marks is given to them, those who have PhD degree. So somehow government have decided that for higher education, they need PhD students. Actually, this point told that PhD means, it does not necessarily mean anything else. PhD means those who have made some thinking of themselves. Up to master degree, a student read the books and understand that thing and write his understanding on the paper, and accordingly he get marks. But in PhD, it's not that. And in a PhD, a student have to think himself to do something. So introducing such teachers, those who have PhD degree, into higher education means that government is trying to incorporate the new thinkers or people who have new thinking process to train the mind of the student. It's really a good decision, provided we get sufficient PhDs. Because in some subjects, PhDs are there, but the modern subject, in new subject, even getting a master's degree is a problem. You can get PhDs in traditional subject only, but the modern subject, it's really impossible to get a PhD. Suppose you can get a PhD in computer science even, but if you are thinking to get a PhD in artificial intelligence, it's really a problem even for the IITs. Next, social engagement for every student as a part of program curriculum was optional. Like a student can get degree without getting involved with the local society. But nowadays, in this education 2000 policy, social engagement for each student is compulsory and should be equal to at least one full semester across the entire duration of the program. In abroad, I stayed several universities. I also taught 1 year in a foreign university, and I have seen that the students are very much aware about their society. They have to do something for the society always. To get a scholarship, to get a position in hostel, everything they have to do something for the society. Because society supports you. So you have to support back the society. Otherwise, you should not have any feeling about your society. Always you are thinking you will be clever. So it's a really nice step taken by the government to force or to every student, to ask every student to do some social activity before getting the degree. This is my lecture, and ultimately I want to end my lecture with what we actually want. What do you want from the students? What education actually really gives us? What sort of country, what sort of world we are going to get? That I want to mention from a poetry translated by Gurudev Rabindranath himself. It's Gurudev's poetry. What do you want? We want in a place where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms toward perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the very desert sand of dead habits, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-winding thoughts and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share my feeling about education and new policy. I am here to answer you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your nice and